Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Meter Cute interviews for Meter and Mayhem. Today we'll be talking to poet Kim Malinowski. She is the author of 4 full-length collections, including 2021's Home from Kelsey Books and the recently released Buffy's House of Mirrors from Carencia Press. She has been nominated not only for a Pushcart Prize, but also Best of the Net and a Riesling Award. She serves as the editor of the ASM Inc., which is the newsletter for the Archaeological Society of Maryland. She's also on the staff of the Fairy Tale magazine, in addition to being administrative support and an active member of Annie Finch's Poetry Witch community. Kim earned a BA from West Virginia University and then an MFA from American University, as well as studying with the Writers Studio. Now, an interesting thing about today's interview and reading, which I'm recording the intro after we've already done the interview. The original intent of the interview series is just to let people get together and talk about cool stuff. That's hard for me. Because I have been an academic, my instinct is to want everything to be researched within an inch of its life, and right, with citations, and I want it all. And I'm actually trying to break myself of that habit, because I think for me that often got in the way of just joyfully interacting with cool shit, right? It has its place and its joys. Research has its place and its joys, but sometimes, at least for me, it can overcome things. And so while editing this interview, it was very difficult for me not to want to call Kim up and say, Kim, we got to re-record this, because here's all this cool stuff I just found out about Sterling Brown and all the work that he did as a champion of the validity of folklore as a vital and vibrant component of African-American literature, right? Like, I just read all this stuff about his work as a teacher and a civil rights activist and everything he did as a literary historian and in the Black Arts movement of the 60s and Harlem Renaissance in the 20s. I just, so much cool stuff. We gotta say it. And then I pulled myself back and I said, hey, what's the point of these interviews? It's just getting together and talking about cool stuff. It's not about presenting people with a dissertation. It's not about presenting scholarly research. It's just about getting together and chatting. And so I'm glad that I've got that part of my brain that says, let's take it down a notch, okay? We don't need to do all these things. Folks can go look things up if they want, which I really recommend that you do. I'm so glad that Kim has introduced me to Sterling Brown during our interview, and I hope that you also enjoy learning a little bit about him, and it will make you want to go learn more and more and more. So sit back, relax, and get ready to fall in love.
Hello, I'm Kim Malinowski. I'm sharing my book, Buffy's House of Mirrors. So you are going to see me, it's illustrated. So you're going to see my shared screen. There is a trigger warning. So first thing first, it's for all those slaying their demons. And the trigger warning is for eating disorders and body image. And this does use Buffy the Vampire Slayer, very much like Louis Busby, where it's a character that comes in, but I am not doing fanfic and it's not stolen and that sort of thing. It's fair use. All right, this is into the House of Mirrors. Funhouse mirrors, zany shapes, sizes, gaudy baubles and bits, flash of lights round and round, and who am I to stake? The woman in the left 2 mirrors lost her soul, her brow bumped, eyes dark, familiar, hurt. Sucked by love and not love, strangled soul fled without vampire kiss. A million things mean love, a million things mean sacrifice, a million things tell her she is undeserving. Mean, selfish, too large, too thin, too dumb, teeth too yellow, hair not yellow enough. And that's not the demon in the reflection. That is the one holding the stake. And then this one is the only one in the collection that is published elsewhere. Um, all right, give me something to sing about. This is also the one that I call the Spike rap, just so you know. I don't have background dancers, not in sync with any damn beat. No dizzying snare or slam of guitar riff, just splintered steak in my heart in the open space you left on repeat. No demon whining out my secrets with snazzy syncopation and pizzazz. No rewinding episodes to explain incomplete character arcs about to explode to every damn character's demise. All that sappy hope and kumbayayas, all my wounds untreated, none stitched up tight. Can't even riff myself into intoxicating burn. Spike doesn't stop my frenetic dance to death, and his eyes don't meet mine and croon. Living will ease the pain. The suffering is part of life, a necessary part. Sure, asshole. No matter how hot he is, Buffy has dibs. I have to perform my own triage before the next tape. Extract the steak that didn't miss, just shattered because the Slayer didn't equip himself for battle-hardened hearts. So now it's Twizzler and Needle, a shot of writer's tears. I tend to the damage. Each splinter, each molecule, because every vampire knows atomic and molecular structure is the difference between the clean wound and the one that festers for centuries. I hear the deep timbre of my slayer's voice, shards zing out into ink, cacophony of treble clef, and the hope for demon duct. Duet with background accompaniment. A take of viola and a trombone or two, and some waltz to the demise under a Capricorn sky, and a pilgrimage past pain. Spike and Buffy could have their fling. I could have whatever tatters remain of my not fling that lasts centuries or seconds. And his eyes are cold and soft and rigid and steel. My mouth prepares to sing to the demon's spell. Maybe this time I could get a dance number. He smiles and not Spike smile. And I sigh and not Buffy sigh. No one can tell us how to live being us. My heart stops, waiting for the next stake. And this was published in Writers from Scars Publications. As I scroll down, you're gonna see different images. Gabby Gilliam is the one who illustrated for me. Yeah, see, totally did. And I have to say that there is some swearing just slightly, like all the time. Some fucking advice needed. Spike, why don't you tell him to save me? Sing some fucking ode and grab his arm, hold a knife to his neck, and ask if he wants me to live or die or sing or waltz my way to ash. Why does he not love me that way? Why doesn't he say? He takes my hand and keeps me from danger, protection without love, protection with duty. Yet he doesn't want to lead me on, as if I didn't question each action. Spike, Buffy smacked you around so much. Is that what got your attention? But won your dead heart? Pangs of my heart not beating is why a stake looks so good, either into his heart or mine. Or why, oh why? And the song plays and the fire burns. Is he coming for me or my dancing stag? I don't think I also mentioned that if you read this in its entirety, it's an entire song. So it has this whole jazz like beat. Well, if you hear me reading it at least. I am gonna read a happier poem. They're not really any of them are really happy, but one that has more hope, I suppose. This is Trapeze Inside. I jump up, shattered mirror fragments tinkle happy. I stand tall, thick hips, thick thighs, thick kneed. It clutches my throat, grips my air away. My demon trapped, claws out. Soul chewed, spit out. Only my fangs satisfy. Hush, bloodlust lullaby. I was the burden weighing me down. I could not beg cross rhythm and spinning accompaniments. Slayer to save me. I think I'm going to read one more. And that's because it's a riff on the Golden Shovel, which is a great form from Terrence Hayes. Mine switches back and forth, left to right margin, and that's pretty much for copyright. Yeah, I can say it's totally not there, but it is. Let me swallow back bile. Ask me for everything, then the rest is up to you. In your fragile peace, pretend you've not loved me, got scared of me, a sopping mess of willing, reflecting your slave. because I can be whoever I need, being something just for you, with soul or without. You don't even know my touches, don't even know me. And just so that we do the golden shovel, let me rest in peace. Um, you've got a willing slave, because being with you touches, and my editor, of course, took it out because he didn't understand me. And then I switched it up slightly, which is why it's a riff. Don't even know me. So that it is not a lyric that is stolen.
Wow, Kim, thank you so much. That was such powerful stuff. I especially love the way the images correspond with the poems, especially the one where the fangs are going into the mirror. Um, wow, thank you. So our next portion was we're going to do a little bit of interview so you can I've fallen in love with your work just now. So, well, I've already read your stuff before, so I already loved it. But for the sake of, our meter cute, I fell in love with it. So, what I'd like to also know from you is tell me about symmetrical poetry that you're in love with.
Okay, well, the first one is Love Song by Maria Rilke. And it is a translation, so I can't be like, oh, this is how he wrote. But it is a translation that I was first introduced to, and I must have been like 3. It was the 80s, and it was on Beauty and the Beast. So you have to go with it that I have it in my head that it's Ron Perlman who's reading this. So I'm going to read it.
So wait,
I do have a
the Beauty and
link.
the Beast TV show, not
The
the
TV show, the
okay.
original one, not the second one that I never watched because I couldn't handle that it was different. But yes. So this is like the original one. Like, I don't know, I was introduced to it like when I was 3 and I've never forgotten it. And it's just amazing. Love song. How shall I hold my soul that it may not be touching yours? How shall I lift it then above you to where other things are waiting? Ah, gladly would I lodge it, all forgot, with some lost thing the dark is isolating in some remote and silent spot. But when your depths vibrate, is not itself vibrating. You and me, all that lights upon us, though, brings us together like a fiddle bow, drawing one voice from 2 strings, it glides along. Across what instrument have we been spanned, and what violinist holds us in his hand? Oh, sweetest song. And of course, that was Rena Maria Rilke again. And I don't know. There's something about the across the instrument have we been spanned and what violinist holds us in his hand that has always wowed me. And my poetry, there's poems that end with "Oh, sweetest song," sort of like in deference. You're like, hey, go look at that. Because that's one thing that the translations usually all sort of keep is the sweetest song or "Oh, sweetest song." My other one that I'm in love with that I teach, I don't teach it necessarily metrically, is Sterling Brown. I'm gonna hold it up and hopefully you can sort of see. Um, he was out of print, and I just found like the other day that he'd been put back into print in 2020. So that is huge and exciting because in my class, I was in the MFA at American University, and we were taught him with Robert Frost, and we all agreed that he had this total range that was so much better than Frost.
Rather than having Kim read Sister Lou by Sterling Brown, we're going to go now to another video on YouTube. So if I've done the editing job right, there should be a link up here where you can pause our video and check out folklorist and writer Arna Bontemps reading Sister Lou for us. And then we'll convene back and you can watch the rest of the interview.
And of course, it is both a folk tribute, a religious tribute, and also I would say a protest poem of a sort, definitely like describing like mistreatment, right? And like what is going to happen and what should happen. So I mean, every poem is amazing. It was really hard to decide which one to read.
I have a couple of thoughts that I wanted to interject. Um, because you said that not in what we've recorded, but before when we were talking about him, that all of his poems are in dialect. Is
No,
that
not all.
okay?
Good chunk. Um, he also has like folk ballads that are not technically like in like a dialect. They're not written in non-standard English, I guess I should say. So it's like Frankie was a half-wit. Johnny was a word I cannot say. Frankie liked to pain poor creatures a little and like it still has like this jazzy feel. He will say himself that he has like jazz and music also, which is like one of the reasons I like him because I use music a lot. But I mean, there is like some amazing, like I would call them sonnets, but like let's do rain. Outside the cold, cold night, the dripping rain, the water gurgles loosely in the eaves. The savage lashes striped, rattling pain, and beat a tattoo on November leaves. The lamp wick gutters, and the last log steams upon the ash-filled hearth. Still grows the room. The ancient clock ticks creakily and seems a fitting portent of the gathering gloom. This is night we planned. This place is where one day we would be happy, where the light should tint your shoulders and your wild long hair. Once we would, oh, we planned a merry morrow, recklessly part ways with the old hag sorrow. Outside, the dripping rain, cold, cold night. Completely different, but amazing.
Yeah, and that's because the one thing, um, sorry, my brain is very full, um, and I'm always amazed by the fact that I came through a PhD program in poetry, and I continue to run into amazing poets that I had no
Never.
contact with during my
Mhm.
program or in the readings that I've done. Um and it just uh not a very good interviewer. It fills my brain is very full and I'm trying to parse through it all. Um because I loved that part of the poem, the thing about with Jesus, was it Jesus? It wasn't, was it opens a window or
Yeah,
rolls?
yeah, like you like is like supposed to be like leading her into this room and like making a bed for her. And like the whole idea is like we don't talk about like I don't my parents are Lutheran and I'm like they do not talk about Jesus making a bed for anybody. But it feels like so like warm. Like the whole thing is like just be friends. You know, you're like it's like I hate to be like you are normal, but at the time it would have been like marginalized, racist, and he's like, let's forget that we're just as well, and like that's sort of like the undercurrent. So like it definitely is like in this sort of like folk speak, I think is what my MFA program called it. I don't know if that's really the technical term anymore because it's been a hot minute since my MFA program, but it's sort of like he chose to use those words and like I mean like you saw the sonnet versus like he knew what he was doing, so he definitely had a purpose. It's like how to define the purpose, but
Well, and a question that I have, and you may not remember this or may not have talked about it. Um, but I'm wondering, I know that oftentimes when folks will talk about other African American poets who wrote in dialects that or we were calling it folk speech, was that what you
yeah.
um that that was often done to placate white audiences, that it was not actually how they wanted to be writing, it was that they were feeling like to get any kind, that if they came out with a, you know, beautiful frost like sonnet, that nobody was going to listen to it and that they had to have that performative aspect. Did you all talk about that with him at all? I mean, I like
Well,
I
we
said,
didn't
I
talk
don't
about
know
like
anything about
quite
him.
like that. Like it wasn't quite like that. But like it definitely was that he chose what he chose. Like so I don't know if it was necessarily he chose it for a white audience. I don't know who his audience technically was, like who he was like aiming and targeting at. But like I think it was a very broad audience. You know, he, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure he lived like in DC. So it's a very multicultural area. He was I am like, yeah, Washington DC, and yes, he was a professor at Howard University, which is where I had my failed PhD. So you know, whatever. But um, so yeah, so like he you know, was with all the contemporaries. So like with his ballads, he has some of this in it. So I don't know the whole timeline. The book isn't it's all of his poems, but it's not necessarily like this poem was written first. But I have a feeling he wrote his ballads um probably all together, and all of like the folk dialect probably close together, because that's sort of like how I do. I like go into like weird things, or I like do deep dives. So that might be me like putting it on. But I have no doubt that the actual like sonnets were to be like, gotcha.
Um,
I have no doubt that there were moments of tension, because I
d what what time what time frame is he writing in? Was he a
he
contemporary
was
of
born
us?
in 1901.
Okay.
So I would probably say like 1920, like definitely the 20s, definitely the jazz era, definitely Harlem, you know, Renaissance sort of thing going on. I'm not sure he's officially like part of it. And that, by officially, I mean like the people that create these canons, like including him. Um, but yeah, like he's definitely influenced and influencing other people. So which is incredible, since like no one I know has heard of him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I know.
When
No one
when
knows
you
about
when
him
you wrote
really, but he's amazing.
when you wrote to me that who you were gonna, I was like, the actor? You're gonna talk about Sterling K. Brown, the actor? And then I Googled real quick just to, have
Hmm.
at least a little bit of a sense. I was like, okay, no, she understands
No,
the
no, no.
assignment that we're doing poetry, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not feeling poetry, but no, no one knows him. And I'm like, he's better than Frost. He really is. Like if you go like with in terms of like uh everything from technicality, like how he can like use language, how he can use like what I would consider like the folk language. I don't want to really call it slang, like you know all that. How he can use like apostrophes with things and do like he can make you know like rhythm that should not be possible. You know, like it's like, well, it's it would have an extra beat, and he's like, it doesn't have a beat. It has like you know apostrophe. Chill. Um, and I look at it and I'm like, how am I supposed to scan this? But I mean, it does scan. I mean, and I'm like, how do you do this? Um, yeah, so like he has like this mastery of everything from what we consider traditional to like everything that would have been at the time put into like the folk category. I think now we would put it in like contemporary poetry if it was happening now. So.
Excellent. Wow, I'm so glad that you brought him to my attention and to the attention of all the readers and stuff out there. And I want to kind of veer off in a different direction because you had you briefly mentioned something that you don't need to delve into, but it's a nice kind of segue to my next question, which is that you mentioned having started a PhD at Howard and that didn't quite go the way you had planned. But my question that comes from that is, what advice do you have for a younger Kim, or maybe somebody who's in similar situations that younger Kim has been in? What advice do you have?
Yeah, with a failed PhD, I probably could have done it if I had really talked to my professors. And I was not in a place to be able to do that. My medication had stopped working. It had worked enough for me to get the MFA and my bachelor's. And then the drug that I was on that worked really well stopped. And then I was on like multiple concoctions during this semester that I'm supposed to be teaching, failing because I can't do grammar. And it was just too much of like an ego slash fear for me to have like all these red marks, and I mean like hundreds, every comma, every splice, everything down the page was terrifying. And I just thought I was bad. And I don't mean like a bad writer. I mean like I was a bad person because I couldn't do grammar. And so like older Kim talking to younger Kim would be like, grammar doesn't actually matter. Later on, you're breaking language and no one cares about your grammar because you've broken it. Um, I should mention that right after that, I lost language completely and totally. I pretty much could only wear pretty clothes that no one would talk to me. And I was a cleaner, I cleaned the church. I had been helping my family in the church and wound up being for like 30 years, a 3-year-old, with a toilet brush is my first memory. So like, so I was able to do that, but that was it. No pleasure in anything. So that was for 5 years. And my doctors didn't like talk, tell me like anything. And I think older Kim would have to say, like, don't don't listen. Like, don't listen to the professor that tells you you can't be in their class because you're not good enough. And don't be, like there's so many like things that people told me I couldn't do that I proved them wrong. And maybe it's because they told me it that it proved me wrong. I mean I proved them wrong. And so like these things all happen, and I don't want to be like they happen for a reason because it's so what everyone tells people, and it's so like icky. I don't know. It's just shows that no empathy. So I don't want to just be like, oh no. But like I had to take matters into my own hand and relearn how to write by myself. And I went to, I had already gotten my MFA, and suddenly I was taking basic classes. I was reading children's books, and I had to get rid of my ego. So the Kim that was the MFA that, was hoity-toity was gone. Um, and I still say I'm going to win a Nobel, and I am, but it'll be for like a much different reason. It'll be for skill, not bravado. Um, so that is like probably like my biggest thing is like be authentic, break grammar. Don't worry about those comma splices. I don't even know what a comma splice is now most of the time. And yet they do all this stuff, And no, so there's people that'll help you through when it really needs to look pretty. And just focus on being yourself in writing, I think is definitely the key thing for Kim.
Nice. Oh, what what advice do you think she might have for you? Or it could be any in doesn't have to be that incarnation of Kim. It can be further back, or what do you think a younger Kim would say that you need to hear right now?
Yes, it is definitely don't people please. I would say you don't need 12 media platforms. You don't need a website and 2 Facebooks and Blue Sky, I think is what the new one is. And like chill, Kim, chill. And like that's what my editors and my publishers want, but it makes me very, very unhappy. And I think young Kim would be like, you already broke the system, so like why aren't you breaking that? So, like it's okay to play a song on your screen so that people know your mood. So we did it with AIM. You'd hang your song, everyone knows you have a breakup, and they'll be like, oh, she doesn't want to talk. And that was our thing. And I think that we could still do that. I think younger Kim would be like, just do it. And also daydreaming. Like I've found myself giving up this year on just like letting myself like daydream and look out into space because I feel like, oh, I'm wasting time. And like those daydreams are just as real and where creativity I feel comes from. So if I give those up, like what else am I giving up of myself? So I think young Kim is like, stop the power. Probably with the publishers, as much as I hate to say it, they are my publishers, but it hurts at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the whole, to explain to our younger selves the realities of the world and the publishing industry. Like, I do a lot of EMDR to deal with trauma, and so much of my sessions is like trying to explain to versions of myself that went through certain traumatic things and then just sort of like got stuck in that mindset that, like, yeah,
Mhm.
that was great for then and for that, 10-year-old energy, but we've got realities in the world. But sometimes, those realities can just go fuck themselves, right? Like, so like when that's so hard to know when to listen to those younger voices and when to convince those younger voices that these are the realities that we're dealing with, man.
Yeah, I try to do a bit of both, I admit. Where I was told that I have to have, this list, my email list, or my career would be over. And I looked at all the publishers that have said it and said, no, I don't believe in it. I've had teachers that say it. I said, no, I don't believe in it. So like I really do like write out by hand to like 100 people. And like most of them will buy my book or go to the library or whatever, review. And I'm like, that's so much better than getting in the spam for thousands. Um, so I feel like some of it I'm reclaiming, but
Yeah, I wonder, like, I think about the way William Blake used to do certain things, or at least the way the stories are, right? That you could knock on his door and say, I need your latest, and he'd like go back and, crank one out. He'd have to put his clothes on first, because word on the street is he used to run around naked, right? He'd put his clothes on, come to the door, get you your poem, and fresh off the print. I don't this I did this, but I'm not really sure what his
I have no idea what form, no.
mechanisms looked like. I just assumed it was one of those like sort of rolling ones. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So, but
No,
um,
no, but I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, is there anything else that you want to um let let the viewers know, or want me to know about your work or your experience as a writer and poet?
Um, that could always be a loaded question. I'm like, well, I could take all day. No. Um, basically that I want to say that I am reasonable. I don't know. A lot of people come to me for advice and they come to me for writing and they know that I am bipolar and I have anxiety and all this stuff. And like I talk to people in multiple countries and I've helped talk them down off the edge. And so like I am like the approachable poet that is mostly available and I'll be like, okay, I will take your call. Who are you? And like I'm there. So like that is probably like the biggest thing is that I have people that I work with $800 that they charge for, like looking at a manuscript and I'm like, we're robbing poets. We're robbing ourselves, poets robbing poets. So I'm like, we'll trade or like or different things. It doesn't have to be all about money with poetry and writing in general because I do it all. Um but yeah, that's probably like my biggest thing is like find a person first before you get overcharged. That is like the thing I do not believe in. So
Well, and the concept of overcharge, value is relative, da 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 da. And so if you are if you are asking somebody who is of a certain experience
I will
level
make
to
that
look at your stuff,
caveat
you want
if
to
you're
compensate them fairly for their time.
Ellen Bass, I would pay a good chunk of money for, yes. But I don't know. If you're just taking courses from somebody, just like really research what they're doing, I guess, then I would say.
That's
And make sure that they fit you before you pay. And like samples, you know.
that
I
is,
hear
yeah.
like sob stories and then I take their their work and look through it, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, you hear all the time about, not all the time, but about sort of scam classes. I can't remember the name of that one woman, but there was some woman a few years ago who there was a big thing where she was kind of bilking people because they think of writers as, hungry, easy marks, whatever.
yeah.
So yeah, always doing your research first. That is good. Um, Excellent. Well, thank you for coming and talking to me today, Kim. This is amazing on this kind of, it's really rainy down here where I'm at. We have flash
Yeah.
floods.
Oh, we have fog. Oh, well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. What a great interview with Kim Malinowski. I feel like I am in love with her work. I already was in love with her work, but now I'm really in love with her work even more. And also the work of Sterling Brown, the first poet laureate of Washington, D.C. Hopefully you are too. Thanks for stopping by.